Silver is the metal everyone loves to be disappointed by. Gold gets the headlines, gold gets the record highs, gold gets the respect, and silver just sits there in the corner, lagging, dragging its feet, testing the patience of everyone who owns it. And if you are holding silver right now, I know exactly what that feels like, because I hear it from people your age every single week. You did the smart thing. You bought the metal that has protected savers since the beginning of money itself. And instead of feeling smart, you feel like a fool. I want to talk to you directly, the way I would if you were sitting across my desk. Because there is a story running through your head right now, and the people who profit from your discouragement are counting on that story to win. So here is my promise for the time we have together. By the end, you are going to understand why silver lagging is not the thing that went wrong. It may be the single most important thing that has gone right. And I am going to show you the honest limit of that too. No fairy tales. Let me give you the first real idea to chew on, because I do not believe in making you wait for it. When silver falls or stalls while gold keeps climbing, something specific happens that most people never stop to notice. Silver just got cheaper relative to gold than it already was. The ratio between the two metals, how many ounces of silver it takes to buy 1 ounce of gold, widens out. And a wide ratio is not a verdict that silver is worthless. Historically, it has been the exact condition that comes before silver catches up in a hurry. The lag is not the failure. The lag is the discount. Hold that thought, because there is a bigger reveal I am saving for the end, and it is the part nobody on the financial channels will show you. Now let me tell you a true story, because I want you to feel this and not just hear it. Go back to the middle of the 1970s. Inflation was tearing through this country. Prices at the pump, prices at the grocery store, everything climbing. Savings quietly bleeding out. And there was a man. Picture him, an ordinary saver, maybe a machinist, maybe a school teacher, someone who had watched his dollars lose their bite and decided to do something about it. He had bought gold. He had done the right thing. He had seen it coming when his neighbors had not. And then gold fell. Not a little. In the middle of that inflation, the exact environment gold is supposed to thrive in, the price of gold roughly cut in half, nearly 50% gone, while the very thing it was supposed to protect against was raging all around him. Imagine sitting at your kitchen table in that moment. You were right about the inflation. You were right about the danger. And your protection was down almost half. Your brother-in-law is telling you gold is a barbarous relic. The newspapers are calling it a busted fad. And you cannot tell, sitting there, whether you were wrong or whether you were simply early. Because in that moment, being right and being early feel exactly the same. They are indistinguishable while it is happening. Here is what that man did not know, sitting at his table feeling like a fool. That drawdown was not the end of gold's run. It was the middle of it. From that low, gold did not just recover, it multiplied many times over, climbing from that beaten down price all the way to a peak that at the start of the decade would have sounded insane. Gold had begun that whole journey down near $35 an ounce when the dollar was still tied to it, and by the end of that run, it was over $800. The man who panicked at the halfway mark, who sold into that gut-wrenching dip because he could not stand feeling early, he got to watch the entire rest of the move from the sidelines. He was right about everything, except his own patience. I tell you that story because that is precisely where silver holders are living right now, emotionally. You are the man at the kitchen table. Silver is lagging, and it stings, and a voice in your head is whispering that maybe the whole thing was a mistake. And the big trading desks, the financial media, the whole apparatus that makes money on your churn, they are not going to correct that voice. They love that voice. A frightened holder dumping metal into a low is their favorite customer. The discouragement you are feeling is not an accident. For a certain kind of professional, it is the product. So let us be precise about what is actually happening under the surface of this lag, because the mechanics matter. Silver is a strange animal. It is money and it is metal, a monetary asset and an industrial commodity at the same time. When fear runs through the market, silver often gets treated as the volatile little cousin. It falls harder and faster than gold, and it makes people who own it feel every bump. But that same volatility cuts the other way when the tide turns. Silver does not tiptoe. When it moves, it tends to move violently, and it tends to make up the distance to gold not gradually, but in a rush that leaves latecomers scrambling. Beneath that price behavior sits something structural that does not care what the screen printed this morning. The world has been consuming more silver than it produces for several straight years now. A genuine, sustained supply deficit, year after year, with above-ground stockpiles being drawn down to cover the gap. Think about where silver actually goes. It goes into solar panels, into electronics, into every device with a circuit spread out in tiny amounts across billions of products. And here is the cruel part for supply. Once it is dispersed like that, in grams, it is largely uneconomic to ever recover. Gold gets hoarded. It sits in vaults. It comes back to the market when the price is right. Silver gets burned. It gets used up and scattered and never comes home. Gold is hoarded. Silver is consumed. That is a supply story that tightens quietly, in the background, while everyone is busy being disappointed by the price. And it does not reverse on a whim. You cannot conjure a new silver mine in a year, and you cannot unscatter the metal already sealed inside a billion devices. Every year the deficit runs. The cushion of above-ground metal gets thinner, and the market gets more brittle, more prone to exactly the kind of violent catch-up move that leaves the patient rewarded and the impatient staring at the sidelines. Now I want to pause here, because we have reached the point in this story where you are feeling the fear most sharply, the fear of having done everything right and still ending up behind. And that is exactly the moment I owe you something practical instead of just more analysis. Here is something most people have no idea is even legal. The largest, most sophisticated buyers of precious metals on the entire planet right now are not hedge funds, and they are not private speculators. They are central banks, the national banks of countries around the world. And they have been buying gold at a pace we have not seen in modern history, more than 1,000 tons a year for several years running, roughly double what they were buying the decade before. The most powerful financial institutions on Earth are quietly moving into hard metal. And here is what almost no ordinary American realizes. There is a perfectly legal way for you to do the very same thing inside the retirement account you already have. It is called a self-directed precious metals IRA, and it lets you move a portion of your retirement savings, the money already sitting in your 401k or your IRA, into physical gold and silver, real metal, not a paper promise, without triggering taxes and without triggering penalties, because it is a transfer, not a withdrawal. I put together a free guide that walks through exactly how it works, step by step, in plain English. And this is not some insiders-only club. If you have $100,000 or more in any retirement account, this is squarely for you. If you are watching this on your television, just scan the QR code on your screen. If you are on your phone or your computer, go to jeffreedguide.com. Take the 30 seconds. Then come right back, because the rest of this matters. Because now I want to show you the part almost nobody gets to. Silver has touched the same ceiling twice in living memory. Once at the start of the 1980s, and again about 3 decades later, early in the 2010s, both times running up near that famous $50 level and both times failing to punch cleanly through. 2 attempts, roughly 31 years apart. Now, most people look at that and see a curse, a level silver just cannot beat. I want you to see it differently. The base underneath that ceiling is now something like 45 years long. 4.5 decades of a market coiling beneath the same overhead line. In every other market I have ever studied, the longer and wider the base, the more violent the eventual breakout. A wall that is held for a generation does not give way gently. When it goes, it goes. And there is a detail inside silver's history that should make every saver furious, because it exposes exactly how this game is played. Back in that second run at the ceiling, silver fell something like 30% in a matter of days. 30%, almost overnight. And do you know what changed about silver in those days? Nothing. Nothing about the metal, nothing about the deficit, nothing about the demand. What changed was that the exchange raised the margin requirements, the amount of money a trader had to put up to hold a position. They made it more expensive to hold, and a wave of leveraged players got flushed out all at once. Understand what that tells you. The exchange can move the cost of holding the paper. It cannot manufacture one more ounce of the real thing. And when the price of silver gets knocked down by a rule change in an office, rather than anything happening in the physical world, that is not silver failing. That is the paper market showing you its hand. That is the whole difference this comes down to. Paper versus physical. And it is the difference the big banks would prefer you never think about too hard. On the paper exchanges, there are far more claims to silver than there is silver sitting in the vaults to satisfy them. It is a game of musical chairs where almost everyone is assured there are plenty of chairs. And a few years back, you may remember a huge crowd online tried to force a silver squeeze by buying up paper claims. It failed. And it failed for a reason that teaches you everything. Buying more paper claims does not drain the physical metal, it just creates more paper. The only thing that actually tightens the real market is real metal leaving the system and going into hands that will not let go, which is exactly what the central banks are doing, and exactly what you can do. Let me widen the lens for a moment, because the reason silver is lagging is tangled up with what the whole monetary world is doing right now. Real interest rates, what you earn after inflation, have stayed elevated. And for as long as anyone can remember, there was an iron rule that said high real rates crush gold and silver. A bond that pays you a genuine real return is the only true enemy the metals have. And yet, lately, something strange has happened. The old rule broke. Gold has been climbing even with real rates high, defying the textbook, because something deeper is driving it. A loss of trust in paper promises that no yield seems able to offset. Silver has not fully joined that party yet. It has been held back, weighed down by the near-term worry that a hawkish central bank keeps real rates painful. And that gap, gold breaking free while silver stays chained to the old fear, is the lag you are living inside. But a chain like that does not hold forever, and silver has never in its history let gold run far without eventually sprinting to catch up. Now think about the Fed itself, because this is part of the pressure on silver right now, and it is worth understanding without getting lost in the noise. Policymakers just made another decision, and they came out visibly split, a genuinely divided House, with several members pushing in the same direction against the majority, which is unusual. The current chair, Kevin Warsh, has made it clear he does not intend to flinch on inflation, and he has deliberately given the markets less hand-holding, less forward guidance than they are used to. In the short run, a chair who signals higher for longer is a headwind for silver. It keeps that real rate fear alive. But step back and remember your history. We have had chairs before who talked tough, and chairs who lost their nerve when the economy wobbled. A tough stance is a policy, not a law of nature, and policies bend when the ground shifts underneath them. The metals do not care about the press conference. They care about what actually gets done over years. Here is the part one most want you to sit with, the reason I have been building to this. There is a moment in every one of these great moves where the smart money already knows, and the crowd does not, and you cannot tell which one you are watching until it is over. The central banks already know. They are voting with more than 1,000 tons a year. The most sophisticated institutions on Earth are already positioned, but the pension funds have not moved. The financial media is still calling silver a disappointment. Your neighbor still thinks you made a mistake. The mainstream has not caught on, and that right there is the whole opportunity. Because by the time it does catch on, by the time silver is leading every broadcast and every advisor is finally recommending it, the easy part will already be behind us. That is the iron law of these things. You do not get an invitation. Nobody calls you and tells you the moment has arrived. By the time it is obvious, being early is no longer available. It has been replaced by being late. That is what the man at the kitchen table in the 1970s could not see. In his moment, being right and being early were indistinguishable, and the discomfort of being early is what shook him out before the real move. You are in that same moment now with silver. The lag feels like being wrong. It is far more likely that it is simply being early, and early is the only price of admission that ever actually pays. So let me be honest with you, because you have earned it, and because the people who oversell this stuff are not doing you any favors. I cannot promise you a price, and I cannot promise you a date. Silver is volatile, genuinely stomach-churningly volatile, and it can fall further and stay down longer than feels reasonable before it ever proves you right. This is a case, not a guarantee, and it is not personal financial advice. What I can tell you is how thoughtful people position for exactly this. You own the metal, the real thing, not a paper claim that can be diluted or margined away in an office. You size your position so that a shakeout, and there will be shakeouts, can never force you to sell at the bottom. And you decide, right now, in the calm, that you will not be the man who dumps his holdings into the dip because being early became unbearable. The whole game is refusing to sell your patience for the price of your fear. And this is the quiet reason the timing matters, without a single false alarm. The window where a decision like this is still cheap and still calm is precisely the window when nothing feels urgent, when silver is lagging and boring and the crowd is looking elsewhere. That is not a coincidence. That is always what the early part looks like. Once it feels obvious, the cheap, calm window has already closed. So if you have watched me all the way to here, I want to offer you something real. For viewers with $100,000 or more in a retirement account, I hold a free one-on-one educational web conference. No obligation, no pressure. Just a genuine conversation about whether this fits your situation. Mention that you watched this all the way to the end, because that is who this is for, the people who did the work. If you are on your television, scan the QR code on your screen. If you are on your phone or your computer, go to jeffweedguide.com. Because in the end, silver lagging and silver being the opportunity are not two different stories. They are the same story, told from two different moments in time. The man at the kitchen table who could not tell the difference between being wrong and being early, that is every silver holder alive today. The ones who understood which one they were watching held on, and history rewarded the holding. The lag is not the thing that broke. The lag is the discount, quietly offered, right before the crowd arrives. And nobody is going to send you an invitation to notice it. That is exactly why it is still yours to notice now.